Chad, as we speak to this incident, I mean, it's pretty clear that Minnesota officials are very hot about what happened, speaking in terms that some people might consider to be inflammatory toward ICE, but then other people might think are justified. Where do you come down on what we've been seeing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I listened to the majority of that press conference. Here's what I'll say, that the mayor's comments were probably some of the most unintelligible, unhinged comments I think I've heard in quite some time. Clearly, he's placing the blame 100% based off of probably one video that he has seen on ICE agents, saying that they have inflamed the situation, that they are there to do all sorts of chaos in his city. He lays no blame at all the individuals that are impeding law enforcement. They are a law enforcement officer like any other officer. And if you get in their way and you don't take their commands, well, then that's against the law and you can be arrested. But again, he brushes past that, doesn't mention any of that. He also doesn't mention that it's his policies that are requiring hundreds of ICE agents in his communities. What he didn't say there is that he knowingly releases criminal illegal aliens out of his jails back into the community, and that he purposely directs his law enforcement officers not to help ICE on the front end of any of these investigations. And so when ICE is there outnumbered, as they often are, it's because the Minneapolis Police Department has been told to stand down, that you cannot help ICE. And so my guess is that come tomorrow or even later this afternoon, that you're going to see a 2 or 3-fold increase in ICE officers in Minneapolis to make sure that what occurred today doesn't happen tomorrow.
Chad, this was an incredibly, it struck me when I heard it live, important part and piece of the news conference that we just heard from the police chief over the protocols that he says they have in place for the okay, we don't have it yet. We're going to turn this. The protocols they have in place to field the uptick in phone calls that they are getting from the people of Minneapolis about the ICE agents on the street there. He said that they have a supervisor on duty that fields those calls. I only bring that up because I wonder where the police were. John and I just mentioned, we've seen the video of the actual shooting that took place. I don't see police on scene there. Paul Morrow was saying in the incredibly contentious scene that we just saw play out, we played about 2 minutes of it, that he couldn't spot a police. So, okay, so here's that moment with the police chief. We've turned it, here it is.
We've had a very dramatic increase in 911 calls related to this activity. We have a protocol in place that has been evolving as the situation has been changing. And at this time, there is a designated supervisor that is on duty 24/7 that fields those calls. And we do everything that we can to ensure that they are appropriately prioritized, with the priority being placed upon the protection of life and safety of everyone in the community.
You tell me, Chad, but it seems to me an incredibly important piece of this investigation will be, did they receive phone calls to arrive at the scene there? Could police have backed up those ICE agents and helped de-escalate the situation before it ended up where it did? Or did they get phone calls this was happening and ICE agents asking for backup? And did the police chief tell his police officers to stand down?
Yeah, those are all good questions. I think we also heard the police chief say that, his officers responded to shots fired and arrived on the scene. And so what that tells me is that they were not there to begin with. Mm-hmm. They were not there to help support ICE. And what we've seen is that the National Guard, when they go into these communities, that's what they're there to do. They're not there to arrest anyone. They're there to protect ICE officers as they go out into these neighborhoods to make these arrests. DHS would normally use local police, but they're in Minneapolis, as we see in many sanctuary jurisdictions. The police department gives them no help, no assistance whatsoever. And so it doesn't surprise me to hear the police chief say, well, they responded to shots fired because they had no one there to begin with. They do not coordinate with ICE. They do not recognize really ICE operations there in the city, because that is the policy driven by the unhinged mayor in his comments. And I think residents need to let that sink in. If ICE was able to go into these jail settings and remove these individuals, they wouldn't be out on the streets in the numbers that they are. but it's because of these policies. It's because of the mayor's policies that they are having to comb the streets and look for these criminal illegal aliens. And I think folks need to let that sit in.
Right. Again, we've seen the video, but we don't want to cast any judgment on the video until expert eyes have taken a look at it and we see other angles as well. Apparently, there's probably dash cam video from the DHS vehicle that would get a different angle of this as well. But it's pretty clear from looking at the video that there was some effort underway to impede federal agents from carrying out their work. Yeah. And at what point does that become a confrontation that can lead to the use of deadly force? I think it's a matter of, obviously, judgment on the part of the law enforcement officers, but it's going to be seen differently depending on what your perspective is in the entire thing.
Well, I think that's right. It does come down to judgment. And what you really can't see by one video or perhaps two videos is the crowd that was there, right? And so if you have just 10 officers, but a crowd of 60 people, well, then those officers, even though what's happening in front of them may look one way on a video, their perception and their judgment is something bad is going to happen unless I take action. It's very hard to sort of Monday morning quarterback these types of things, and I'm going to let this investigation play out because I've seen parts of the video. But it's really important. That's why ICE and law enforcement in general, whether it's the FBI or local police, that's why when they go into certain situations that they go in force, right? Because they don't want it spinning out of control, or they don't want their officers to come under attack. But unfortunately, ICE in many instances, and certainly it appears today, they are going into some of these communities and they are quickly outnumbered by the number of people around them, right? And why is that? Well, because you've got the mayor and others calling ICE, an occupying force and Nazis and all these other things. So they really need to take a look at the type of rhetoric that they're putting out in their communities as well.
All right, Chad, thank you very much for joining us on the breaking coverage. Let's bring in.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.